then I probably don't get to spend as much time narrowing my focus on what my uniqueness is or reaching out and making those calls that feel like a gentle nudge, but also really are at the root of it an accountability partner. But if AI can do the other pieces, then I can show up as fully human in terms of how I can be a real handshake that says, hey, remember this was important to you. Where does it stand on your list of priorities right now?
The Authenticity Project. Real leaders, real relationships, real stories. Stay tuned. My interview with Maika is coming up next. Hey, Maika.
Hey, how are you, Don?
I am well, thank you. Thanks for joining the Authenticity Project.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so I know you and I think the world of you. So let's let everybody else hear who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Gosh, well, hopefully I'll get it right of what you think the world of. But my name's Maika Leibbrandt, and I have been working in the space of strengths-based development for more than 20 years. Today, I run a boutique coaching and consulting business where I really help people name what their unique, enduring, and powerful patterns of talent are so that they can treat that talent really well for themselves and for others.
Awesome. So, in your career, your illustrious, long, loving career, what decision did you almost not make that would have changed everything?
This one, I can go right back into my brain of the moment that something really just unlocked, and it was very surprise. So I was very young and I was working at a news station. I thought my dream forever was to be a news reporter. And specifically, I wanted to host the Today Show. And what I loved about that was the
High
ability
bar.
to
High
right?
bar.
I mean, I go big or go home. I love, and I have a degree in broadcast journalism and was working at a news station. In fact, I was probably up for the point, I found out later when I quit this job, that I was just about to be promoted to an opportunity to do a lot more live shots, which at the time was like the pinnacle. And I also had this offer to go work for Gallup. That kind of fell in my lap as an accident. I was helping a friend test an in-depth interview by being one of the people who they tested the interview on. And 7 interviews later, they came back and said, well, you really don't have manager talent for what we're hiring, but we would like to hire you for something else.
Hmm.
And it was a fast no. I said, no, I'm on this other track. I am going to go be Jane Pauley or Katie Couric. And then they came back again and said, would you please just consider this role as a learning and development consultant? At the time, they called it a seminar leader, really working with manager development within large and small organizations, but helping people understand their best foot forward and really how to lead in a people first sort of way. And I thought, well, that's interesting, but that is not my dream. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And I talked to a couple people about it. I really gave it a good thought. And then I was stuck in traffic
Mm.
um, behind a Jeep that had one of those spare tire covers that said, life is good. And sitting there staring at this spare tire cover that came like a sign from God right in front of me in a traffic stop, I thought, wow, I'm up at this crossroads where I can either be promoted to the other station and follow what I think I'm supposed to be doing, or I could entertain this other offer that I didn't even know I wanted.
Mm.
And what really felt like settling and in my chest and in my gut of like, this could be just a life is good piece. For some reason, the two options, that fork in the road, the job with Gallup felt more like life can just be good. This could be
Mm.
interesting. You'll be surrounded with people who you want to grow you. It's a different path, but it felt more comforting and positive. And so I said yes to that job. I worked at Gallup for 15 years. I worked around the world. I learned more than I've learned, well, probably the most at the time than I ever could have imagined learning. And I was loved upon by great leaders who changed my whole, not just my career, but my whole life.
Absolutely. That's how you and I met is
I know.
through Gallup. So, but speaking of which, when you were in that environment, is there anyone in particular that invested in you, and shaped you along the way that just stood out?
Well, we could talk for the entire episode about this because the list is long.
Mm,
Um, I'm still in very close touch with so many of those difference makers. Probably even before Gallup, the reason that I was even interviewed was a woman named Jan Kaufman, who led an organization that I was involved with in undergrad. And she was, if I think about all of the people who've really, really shaped me through investment, she's probably the one that would be earliest as standing out of holding me to a higher accountability than I
mm,
had before.
mhm.
Um, really finding ways to challenge me, really expecting a lot of me than, and as a like gifted kid, eldest daughter, I never had any trouble impressing teachers or professors. Like I really didn't have to try that hard. And she was probably the first one who said, you could do a whole lot more. I need you to try more. So that stands out.
Yeah.
But the best boss I ever had, a woman named Connie, still to this day continues to invest in me and just finds ways to isolate what I do really well as being unique to me, but also helping me see it as being unique to my development. Like she can talk about, here's one specific behavior that I think you need to dial up or that you need to accentuate. And she's really just taught me to be endlessly curious about the positive differences in people.
That's awesome.
um, but I mean the list goes on and on and on, but those are the two that stand out.
All the investments that people make, right? Just lovely. Yeah.
Incredible.
So, in your career, also, you've had the great opportunity to coach within organizations, major corporations regarding
Hmm.
business development and in sales,
Yeah.
also. So, tell me a little bit about that experience as it lays into the career, also.
Of course. So I mean, talk about opportunities. Your first question was like the perfect way to talk about this because it was a decision I almost didn't make.
Mm,
Um, a lot of across my career, and I've been outside of Gallup, really getting to go deeper within organizations as a more independent consultant for the past almost 4 years. What I find everybody needs a little bit of help on is business development, whether or not they are in a role that has sales in the title. um, that being said, I also have some specific opportunities to coach sales professionals. And usually, what we're working with is um, I don't even have to know the specific industry or the specific clients. There tends to be a couple things that are universally needed across different roles. And I would say that is, how do you really claim your unique advantage, which sounds like a BD standard, right? Know your unique value proposition, but as an individual person, and then how do you show up on purpose? So how do you think about having an influence, persuading, and see it as an opportunity to serve and help and coach, not as something that we should shy away from?
exactly. So, layering in within that, how does the relationship factor in, like a client relationship and relationship intelligence, that connection point? How do those results actually factor into the success of a good business developer?
Mm. Well, I can tell you in my space, and this might be, I could talk probably about plenty of other spaces, but I'm in the space of I love developing custom solutions that may or may not ever be repeated at scale. So, what I sell is my attention.
Mhm.
and and that is either as a coach or as a facilitator or a developer of a learning program. So if I don't have a good relationship, not only will people not think of coming back to me, but they won't know the possibilities of what we can create. And as a highly creative person, it's more interesting to me, and I deliver better results for people when we're customizing something, sometimes even from like a blank page. You've known me as a
Yeah,
coach and a
yeah,
consultant, and I mean, we don't follow a framework. We don't follow a formula. It is, how
no,
do I be hyper present with you so that together we can come up with something that's really going to leave you in a better place. Um, I think probably the second most important thing that binds me to my clients other than my attention is the relationship and my ability to hear what they're not saying, to
Mm,
know them well enough that I know what is driving them, what are they dreaming of that maybe they have not connected to a solution that I could help them with. Right. I need to know like how are they spending their weekends and what are their hobbies and what's their
yeah.
dog's name? Because at some point that is going to come up in an opportunity to make forward progress for them that doesn't just feel like I'm layering on a product, but that really sinks into something that matters for their lives.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, with authenticity, I work with highly technical individuals and being
Hmm.
able to do that. So I'm just curious, like from a relationship aspect of things, how in the work with like engineers, say, or engineering
Hmm.
minded individuals, what is your experience with the way that they develop relationships?
Highly technical people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think everybody has more to explore than they realize they've already explored. And
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't, but especially in that engineering or highly technical space, if I can be your Lewis to your Clark, your fellow explorer, that's how I find that we can really build a relationship. So it's having a space of non-judgment, of high confidentiality, and putting people at ease to say, you know what, I'm not here to tell you you're right or you're wrong. I think I have an advantage in not being super technical in some of these spaces where I can very honestly say, I'm not here to be a subject matter expert. I'm here to help you explore together, to sort of sit in the, like if it's a roller coaster, I'm sitting in the seat next to you. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, why don't we go look at that loop again? Or, hey, you reacted differently on that drop. Why don't we replay the tape and figure out what that
Mm-hmm.
was? Um, I find that that really is especially important for people who default to curiosity and analysis, is to say, to really define my role and help them understand the safety and the guardrails of saying, oh, she's not here to sell me something, to manipulate me, to be my friend even. She's really here to help expand the periphery
Mm-hmm.
that I have for whatever it is that we're going through. I am during the summer, the reason I have a virtual background right now is I have two kids at home. And so it's kind of hard to work from my normal office, which is in our home. So I have this amazing opportunity to work from my grandma's garage.
Ah.
And Grandma Lois is 98. And she comes over and visits just about every day. And she always asks me some of the similar questions. One is, do you have everything you need?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Two is, well, if you weren't here, what would we be doing with the space? But the third question, the one that kind of like jabs at me over and over is, how do you know how to do what you do?
Ah.
Because she'll ask who
Yeah.
I'm talking with during the day, and I'll say, well,
Mhm.
today it was an architecture firm or an engineering firm or a credit union or a global beauty brand. And she
Mhm.
will just give me this side eye and say, well, what makes you credible?
Mhm.
And I have to find, first of all, it's not a question that I ever ask myself because to
Yeah.
me, my job is not to be the industry expert or the subject matter expert.
Mhm.
My job is to sit right next to them and expand what they can understand from what they're facing. And that I actually am really good at because it turns out it's all about storytelling, it's all about people. So maybe that path toward broadcast journalism wasn't as much of a left turn as I thought.
But I'm super curious, how do you answer that? How do you answer that with your 98-year-old
With
grandmother?
grandma,
Hmm.
I say, well, I don't know any more than they do, but I do know a whole lot about helping them learn.
Mm, yeah. Well, and that's something that you and I share. I didn't have a journalism background, but I was trained in journalism with a public
Hmm.
relations degree. So I'm massively curious. And they really taught us how to ask open-ended questions.
Yes.
And that curiosity, I will tell you, that has gotten me all across my entire 33-year career. Being able to stay curious and be that problem finder as well as a problem solver. I don't have all the solutions, but I can ask really great questions and then get people thinking in that way. And that's why studies show also that technical minded, engineering minded people make some of the best salespeople because they are authentic, because they
Hmm.
walk in not having all the answers, being strategic, wanting to genuinely help their clients solve. And it's for them to really own their uniqueness, going back to the first part of the conversation, in terms of what you do. That actually helps them to be more successful. They just don't call it sales. I'm like, I don't
Well,
care what you call it fun time with friends.
absolutely.
Just do it.
I think so much of what we do, regardless of what it is that we're developing in a business, is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And Don, maybe that's probably where we share that PR or journalism background. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure yours was just yesterday, but mine feels like it was a couple lifetimes ago. But with just like you can't see how you show up in the world from somebody else's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
you really cannot make sense of the story that you are living without a lot of work. Now, journaling helps, having a therapist helps,
Mm-hmm.
but
Coach.
very often the service I provide as a coach, as a sounding board, as a consultant is I help you make sense of the story that you're in, right? What is the
Mm-hmm.
context? What is the problem that you're facing? What is the action? What are your choices? What is the mission that your action underlies? What do you want to learn from it? Why are we telling this? So it is, I think, maybe there's a nugget you could take away even just for the episode is the value of paying attention to the craft of storytelling as you
Mm-hmm.
are building a relationship.
Mm-hmm. What is it that makes a good storyteller, though, Micah?
A good story listener. I mean, it's why
Yeah.
we love the movies. It's
Mm-hmm.
and I think probably in our society of shorter and shorter and shorter attention spans, it is a gift to get lost in someone's story and to stay with it through the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes a good storyteller? Probably a little bit of theater and a lot of curiosity.
A lot of curiosity, for sure. So let's go back to you in terms of feedback. What is some of the, like, in terms of feedback, what is the most uncomfortable feedback that you've ever received, but maybe like was transformative? And if it's related to business development, even better. But,
Yeah.
just something related to that.
Well, I think this was so uncomfortable because it hit at something that I thought I was really personally good at. And I
Mm-hmm.
do find when I'm working with people's strengths or talent, the parts that hurt the worst are not usually negative feedback about something that you didn't think you were doing good anyway. It's probably exactly what happened to me, which is, wow, you really hit me where I should have been better. I was, it is a business development story. I was on site in a business development meeting, but it also had a component of sort of teaching to it. So it was, we were going to host this learning day and then also have an important meeting afterwards with the stakeholders to think about expansion and future opportunities. So I was part of a teaching team and I was really spread thin in my personal life at the time. I
Mm-hmm.
also probably didn't take sleep hygiene quite as seriously as I do today. I was young and invincible, like, right? I was on top of the world. I trusted my own tremendously huge ego. And I showed up and I thought I did just fine. But I found that I was in hindsight, when I got the feedback, I realized that this person who loved me enough to tell me absolutely had a point. Um, Also, I think I remember this feedback because it was rare that I got feedback in this role. I was young, I was on the road all the time. And if anybody else saw me really in my element doing my job, they were usually not my boss. So they didn't necessarily feel responsible for giving me that sort of performance feedback. The
Mm-hmm.
conversations I would have with a manager or a boss would be about what is my brand overall? What are some of the skills of my role that I could do better? But because of the nature of the role, the only people who ever really saw me on were peers of mine. So this was a peer, a guy named Tom, who pulled me aside afterwards and was like, Micah, that was okay, but I've seen you be so much more animated, so much better prepared. Like, I think you can do better.
Mm.
And again, as a top performer, that's like somebody telling you your gold star is a little dull and it like cut me deep. I remember feeling really awful about it because I asked him, I stayed in, I said, what do you suggest? Or what are a couple things I could try to do differently? And he said, you know what, I think it comes down to saying your stories out loud more often before you really give them in a teaching session. And also this teaching session rolled into a business development conversation
Okay.
explicitly.
Mm.
And so he talked about preparation. And I find that and this was more of a performance piece. It was like giving a talk and it wasn't necessarily teaching, like sitting down with people. So it was essentially an onstage moment, which I thought I was great at. I thought that was the best thing that I did.
Mm.
I also have always prided myself on my ability to improv, right? To just sound good the first time.
Mm.
So I hadn't talked through things. I had read through everything. And I had even taken notes on the plane on the way there. I had studied who the client was and what motivated them, but I hadn't ever said it out loud. My preparation was to write and to think.
Mm.
Now, what I learned is, especially if I'm good at communicating out loud, why would I not incorporate that into my preparation? There was this disconnect of I thought I was doing, what looks right. It looks like you're studying, like you're sitting in the library and you're taking notes. But it wasn't unique to what I actually needed in order to be my best. So that feedback stuck with me because it stung,
Mhm.
but also because it taught me, gosh, if you know what you do incredibly well, that's only a starting point. It's also a recipe for how do you need to prepare? What do you crave when you're tired?
Yeah.
What is going to make you exceptional?
Mhm.
Um, so that was, gosh, that was maybe 20 years ago. And I still, to this day, before a high stakes interaction, I will not just think through or write through what I'm going to prepare. I'll actually talk it out loud.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how some of those little nuggets that people plant in you, you just carry them with you throughout your career. But it also emphasizes we all need coaches. We all need
Yes.
people to see what we don't see and be strong enough to be direct enough to give us
hmm
that insight. I wonder what it did to Tom to have to like offer that up, like how hard that was for him.
I don't know. I got the sense that it was a relationship move,
Okay.
right? So I
Mhm.
don't think he would have done that if he didn't care about me.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like radical candor with Kim Scott.
Yeah,
You know, you have to, if you
absolutely.
care enough, you actually will challenge greatly. I think I mixed up, I mixed Kim Scott in there with Brene Brown.
But
'Cause-
together, there we
exactly.
go. That's
Yes.
powerful. And it's probably a lot of what you do really well with your clients as well is I'm not just here to tell you what you should do next. It's I want to name what you're doing exceptionally well and challenge you on a way
Yeah.
that it could have more sustainability or build more of a legacy or be heard and adopted better.
Yeah. Well, speaking of preparation, because that's one tool for preparation, but now we're looking and we're well into the middle of 2026, and preparation is transforming itself with AI. I'm super
Mhm.
curious in the way that you are leveraging AI in business development with yourself, with your own business, as well as with maybe clients.
I am probably falling into that trap that we're all afraid of where I'm doing more
Hmm.
instead of resting more. I mean, I've heard that spoken about AI of like, oh, it's just going to stretch us to where our expectations are bigger.
Mm.
But I am, and I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah.
So I have been able to free up a lot of the tasks that felt one track so
Hmm.
that I can do the thinking that feels like I'm hitting five tracks at once. So right now I love Claude. I have the paid version. I get as secretly as secret can possibly be, and then I run full speed. So things that I used to just do as a business owner because I thought I had to in order to get it into my head, like when I'm booking a flight or when I'm adding things to my calendar or when I am polishing up a piece of writing. I really thought for a long time that the act of doing that myself was keeping it all in my head for me. AI has allowed me not to change that, but to let go of the fear of having to keep it all in my head.
Mm.
So it's the same reason
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, I started using a Remarkable, not because I liked the digital writing, but because it alleviated the anxiety of not having the right notebook with me, or having to keep it all in my head. I find that AI has done something similar, which is I know that I'll be able to recall it, right? I can say, tell me what that email said, or remind me what city I'm going to be in next week,
Yeah.
because I incorporated into some of that admin work, instead of feeling like I need to just hold it all.
Yeah. Go farther faster.
Yeah,
That,
absolutely.
that's how I'm leveraging it also. What do you think? I mean, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Like,
Mm.
do you see the replacement of AI in business development and business developers out there?
I think the real danger, and we have to talk about danger here instead of just
Hmm.
even though I swing positive about AI. I think the danger is going to be not necessarily replacing business development, but missing opportunities for specialty in business development, because AI has this tempting ability to say you can be all things to all people because whatever you don't do well, we will supplement.
Mm.
And I think it homogenizes a lot of what people have to offer. And so it becomes even more important, I think, for people to nail their uniqueness and be able to understand where their offering, their perspective, their history, their values, especially line up with their customers. Uh, Otherwise, I think it could probably I think AI definitely could maybe be a dangerous place of making grand promises that miss the value of
Mm.
specificity. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So I'm going to ask you the Authenticity Project question. That's the leading question that I'm going to ask all of my guests. So I believe that business development is a lost art. It's part art, but also it's part science. And some component of it is I'm hearing from my peers that are out in the industry. I'm experiencing it also. I'm seeing that people think that business development is just someone that has a big credit limit on their credit card and all they're doing is entertainment. And so there are various components to business development that I hold sacred that I
Mm.
know that others do as well. So I'm super curious what components in your mind are vital to the success of business development and the continuation of business development in the relationship intelligence piece that we have.
I think it's a lot of people, I think, will probably say, oh, you can never replace the human element.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's too general of a statement. What do we love about human elements? We love that you can't ignore them when they're trying to hold you accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
We love that when somebody really knows themselves and is authentic to what they present, we love that they can be predictable, but that they can also, within that predictability, be emotional and have highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are probably the two things that I think we have to get even better at, which I see again as a promise. If it's my job to do everything, to know all the research, to walk step by step through the admin of managing my calendar, then I probably don't get to spend as much time narrowing my focus on what my uniqueness is, or reaching out and making those calls that feel like a gentle nudge, but also really are at the root of it an accountability partner. But if AI can do the other pieces, then I can show up as fully human in terms of how I can be a real handshake that says, hey, remember this was important to you. Where does it stand on your list of priorities right now?
Mm-hmm.
No Claude prompt is ever going to hit you quite like a coach or a friend or even a distant contact asking you an
Mm-hmm.
accountability question.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think we have to, it sounds almost basic with business development learning, is, knowing your unique value proposition or being yourself and showing up as yourself. But again, to that tempting promise that AI offers where you could be more things to more people, I
Mm.
think it becomes even more crucial and perhaps more difficult that we help individuals identify what do you do with excellence that you're not just relying on grit for. right? What is your area where you lose track of time, where you wake up in the middle of the night and your brain is thinking that way? Because if you can articulate that, I know this is one of the things that you do really well is help people really hone and articulate what they offer. But if you can articulate your natural patterns of how you think, how you show up, how you build a relationship, who you are to somebody when you're at your best and they're at their best, that isn't something I think that AI can do for you because it requires that gut check of being incredibly picky. And that is something that I think we've got to stay prioritizing and get better at is helping people say, I don't need you to be all things. In fact, of all the partners who I trust, I don't trust them because they do everything for me. The
Mhm.
ones who I have the best connection with, who I want to work with more, are the ones who know who they are and hone that and articulate it, and who even see advantage in who they're not, right? Who can say, I will be my absolute best in this way. And over here, we're going to rely on somebody else. That's that's the piece of human connection that I think is probably most important to protect.
And that's the soft, creative, artistic piece of business development. So
Absolutely.
that I absolutely
Yeah.
love. Is there like what else? Like any last message, Micah, that you want to share with the audience?
I have learned so much from you, Don, about how business development, and I would say it's probably the same for leadership. Sometimes we think it's either the on stage or the backstage, right? How do you show up in front of people and how do you plan when you're not? And what I've learned from you is a lot more of the how do you plan piece, that it's not just like you said, dazzling people with a high credit card limit. It's also where is your pipeline? Where are your leverages of influence? What do you know to be true and important to all of these different people who you're serving? That kind of in between, I would call it like backstage work,
Hmm.
um, is a piece that we've got to think about as equally important as how you show up, how you have a good handshake, how you make great eye contact. And so I want to thank you for everything that you've shared that I've just latched onto and adopted.
Thank you, Micah. It's been great. Thank you so much for joining me in the Authenticity Project. So stay tuned for more and stay tuned for more. I'm going to put some information about Micah down below. So you guys take good care and thank you, Micah, again.
Thank you so much.
The Authenticity Project. Real leaders, real relationships, real stories. Join us for the next BD conversation coming soon.